If you're building a complicated web app, you're going to end up with a lot of routes and a lot of different view functions inside of this webui.py file. And so there's been a lot of interest in past times I've taught this class and how you can actually split up the routes for your web class so that you can split it into multiple smaller files. And that's really the best way to sort of keep track of where everything is. Because just like with the console UI, if you start, it's actually at the point now where there's enough code in here that finding something becomes not trivial. Whereas if you put it in like 4 or 5 separate files, it's much easier to find stuff. And in fact, we have sort of a natural file structure suggesting itself because I have separate routes for print, create, update, and delete already organized. And so I can create separate files for each of those groups of routes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a web UI still that's going to have top level routes that don't actually fit into any of these buckets. So for example, the thing that serves the home page, it's not any one of the buckets of routes, the groups of routes. But starting with the playlist stuff, I have some play functionality already. And so I can move these routes into another file called, let's call it print routes. So I'm going to go ahead and in my UI folder, for now I'm going to have this in the same folder as web UI. I'm going to go ahead and make a new Python file called print routes. And then this is going to be a class, just like my web UI is. And it's going to have an under app variable the same way as my web UI does as well. But here's the tricky part. So if you want to add a route to a web server, the way you do that is you use the decorator @ app.route, and then you put a rule that matches a URL and a view function below that. What that actually does internally is it stores the rule and the view function on this app object, which is a Flask object. Now, it's crucial that I have one Flask object and that all of my routes be on that Flask object. So this one here, this is the one true Flask object that I need to add all of my routes to. Now, obviously any route in here is going to be added to this one, but I have to also make sure that the routes that I add in print routes get added to this one as well. Now, because I'm using name mangling, I can't access this value directly. I can't just say webui.under_app if I want to access this value from print routes. So what I'm going to do instead, I could get rid of name mangling on the app object. It's not really buying me that much anyhow, but I'm going to stick with it. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to add a class method called getApp, and all it's going to do is return cls.app. So that's going to return the one true Flask object. And I have to make sure that this file here, webui, gets loaded before any other file tries to access that value, because it's actually loading this file, the process of loading this file, that causes this thing to get executed when it initializes the webui class. And I'll get to that in a minute. So for now, though, what I'm going to do is in my print routes, I'm going to say under app is webui dot getApp. And then up here, before I get to the class definition, I'm going to say from webui import webui. So this thing here, this import, is actually going to cause app to get set so that I can then grab it and then use it for any routes I define in print routes. And then I think I have to put the directory name here, the package, because even though it's in the same one, everything's relative to where that main thing is. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my two print routes. And there they are. So I have print playlists and print playlist. And I'm going to cut that code, paste it into print routes. And then I'm almost done. So now you'll notice that all of the imports that I had on WebUI are not here. So I need those imports as well. So for this one, I'm going to do from Flask import render template and request. And am I using redirect? I don't think I'm using redirect yet. No, just playlist. So I'm going to just do the ones that I'm actually using. And then from logic.playlist, import playlist. All right. And then I have an underline here for all playlists. So what I'm going to do there is I'm also going to have get. I'm going to have get all playlists. So let's define that. And I'm not going to copy it, I'm just going to return it. Okay, and then probably I will need that for all videos as well. I'm just going to assume that I will at some point, so I'm going to go ahead and do that one as well. So class method get all videos is going to return cls.allvideos. All right, so that should be all of the references here. And then it's complaining unresolved attribute reference, all playlists. So this is going to be get all playlists. And then I think that's all the warnings here. So let's go ahead. And I'm missing one other thing. So let's see what happens when I try to run main. And then we'll fix it. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And I'm going to go to my browser. I'm going to go home. The home works fine. And then I'm going to click on one of these print functions and it says URL not found. So the reason the URL is not found is even though I've defined this print routes to add the routes to my app object, and presumably I'm getting the correct app object, should be unless I made a mistake. This doesn't actually get loaded unless I explicitly import it from somewhere. So what I'm going to do is in WebUI, when I actually go to run the server, and actually there's a run method here somewhere, where did I put it? Right at the bottom. So before I actually run the app, I'm going to say from UI.printroutes, import print routes. And then even though I'm not actually going to access anything in print routes, the mere fact that I import it causes those routes to get added to the app object when it gets loaded. Because that's just how decorators work. Decorators run immediately on the code that they're decorating. So let's go ahead and try it now. And then I'm going to go back to the browser. I'm going to go to the home page. I'm going to reload. Reload works. I'm going to click on the link. And now I can access my routes in print routes.